Hello, and welcome to another episode of What Nobody Told Me After 65. Well, it's your lady on the go, lady in the know, Miss Info. You've reached the Information Nation, where knowledge is shared and wisdom exchanged for the betterment of a people. Good evening. I just got back. I was invited to the second part of a family reunion. People that I don't know, who I feel like I know, and I really enjoyed myself. Got a chance to do some dancing, a little line dancing, and some good food. Anyway, it's been a busy day. I've been out all day long, hanging out all day. I'm getting too old for this. And I got to go to church tomorrow. But I want to talk to you tonight, and I hope I can finish it in one video. I was on the phone with a friend of mine the other day, and she happened to mention something about the executions of the two Caucasian gentlemen who were responsible for the dragging death of Mr. Byrd. And I was like, what? When did they get executed? I had no idea. And I pay attention to practically everything. I read everything. But it didn't just happen. These jokers were executed in 2011 and 2019 respectively. So, when I say the name James Byrd Jr., what do you remember about the story behind that name? James Byrd Jr. I am calling this video Poetic Justice. What happened? I remember this thing like it was yesterday. James Byrd Jr. was drugged behind the back of a pickup truck until he was torn apart, limb from limb, including severing his head. This happened on June the 9th of 1998 in Jasper, Texas. 3 white men were found guilty of capital murder. 2 were sentenced to death. They were executed in 2011 and 2019, respectively, like I said. And the third, the only one that showed any remorse, was sentenced to life in prison. Now, I'm not sure if he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but I had a hard time fact-checking that. But I'll get back to you on it. So, here's the question. When did the media cover this? When and who reported it? When I went back to look, I did find information on CNN. But that was the only outlet I could find it on. Why were we kept in the dark? And what was going on in the world at that time that maybe it overshadowed the fact that these 2 guys in a predominantly racist town were found guilty and sentenced to death? For the first time in the history of Texas, do I believe, and I'm going to have to check it, white men were executed. This was a capital murder trial. What is capital murder, you ask? Capital murder makes the perpetrator eligible for the death penalty almost automatically. Well, let's just say automatically, because that's why it's called capital. So let me give you a brief timeline of the events in this horrendous crime. 1998, 3 white men beat and drug the body of Mr. Byrd to his death. The trial began in January of 1999. February of 1999, then Governor George W. Bush provides a $100,000 grant to Jasper County to help prosecute the suspects. Now, why he had to provide money, I don't know, but a $100,000 grant was given to Jasper County so that they could prosecute these guys. Also in February 1999, one of the guys named John William King, his father pleaded for his son's life. He asked that if they would give him life in prison instead of the death penalty. That didn't happen. In May, or on May 7th of 1999, just 3 months later, the Houston Mayor Lee Brown pushes for swift passage of a hate crime act that was called the James Byrd Jr. Act. That was on May the 7th. May 14th, 7 days later, Texas senators defeated the James Byrd Jr. Act. The Senate Republican caucus, led by Republican David Sibley of Waco, Texas, delivered the two-word response: no deal. In September of 1999, Brewer, who was the second man, goes on trial. September of 1999, the jury sentenced Brewer to death by lethal injection. November 1999, the jury sentences 24-year-old Barry, the one who showed some remorse, to life imprisonment. October of 2009, now 1999, 2009, 10 years later, President Barack Obama signs into law the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crime Prevention Act. It expands on federal hate crime prosecution to include sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability. Mr. Byrd was disabled. In September of 2011, now this crime happened in 1998. In September of 2011, 44-year-old Lawrence Brewer is executed by lethal injection. April of 2019, the execution of John William King is scheduled. April of 2019. So from 2011, when Lawrence Brewer was executed, to 2019, that's 8 years, what was going on? Why didn't they execute John William King? Finally, in 2019, John William King is scheduled and is finally executed. But it's been 21 years. 1998 to 2019, 21 long years to see justice served. They knew they were guilty. What was taking so long? Well, part of it is they were white. Bottom line. Simple. Now, I cannot imagine what Mr. Byrd's family must have been going through. My God. This agonizing wait was cruel and unusual punishment, and they did nothing to deserve this miscarriage of justice. Nothing. So, where are the actors in this whole saga right now? Well, we know that Lawrence Brewer and John William King are dead. Both killed, executed by lethal injection. Sean Barry is currently on death row serving a life sentence. He is in solitary confinement, but he'll be eligible for parole in 2038. That's right around the corner, really. Like 10 years. Let me tell you about these two criminals. Lawrence Russell Brewer. He's the one, he had tattoos of a man being lynched, tattooed on him. He had a bunch of tattoos. And he was proud of the fact that he belonged to the Aryan Nation, or these white supremacist group. And he was very vocal about it. Matter of fact, I think he wrote a letter. He said, I'm paraphrasing. Pretty much he wrote the letter to the other guy and said, hey, look, we gonna die, but we'll make history. Sean Berry, the one guy who got life in prison, he said he was afraid. And I can probably believe him. He was scared. He wanted to stop them from doing what they were doing, but he was afraid. However, he was the driver of the truck. The truck where Mr. Byrd was shackled by his ankles with a chain that, when they finally found parts of his body strewed on the road for 3 miles, to include his head, his right shoulder, and arm, his ankles had been ground down to the bone. To the bone. His testicles were missing. He no longer had a buttock. His butt was gone, down to the spine. Can you imagine being drugged like that? And the coroner concluded that he was alive. He didn't die until his head was severed from his body. What a horrible way to die. In Texas, you are allowed to get one last meal. Yeah, you can get one last meal if you are to be executed. Now, it never made sense to me. You're going to eat all this food, and then we're going to kill you. And what? But let me tell you, Lawrence Russell Brewer, the one who was executed in, when did they execute Brewer? They executed Brewer on 2011. They executed Brewer in 2011. He was 44 years old. And for his last meal, this is what he ordered: 2 chicken fried steaks, a cheese omelet with ground beef, tomatoes, onions, peppers, and jalapenos, a large bowl of fried okra, 1 pound of barbecue meat with a half a loaf of white bread, 3 fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, 1 pint of vanilla ice cream, a slab of peanut butter fudge, and 3 root beers. One man who's about to die ordered all this food, and when they delivered it to him, he refused to eat it, said he wasn't hungry. Really? Now, I have to tell you, in Texas, there is no longer a last meal being provided anymore. I think the governor at the time said he never agreed to that, and so he struck it off the books. If you're going to die in Texas, you're going to die hungry. I still can't wrap my head around why there was so much secrecy surrounding this history-making event, because it was historic. 2 white men were executed in a predominantly racist state for killing a black man, and we only got a small whimper. So, was the wrong made right? Not if you ask the members of the Byrd family, because now they have to watch the courts for when Barry comes up for parole in 2038. They said they want to be there when he goes before the parole board. I don't blame them. Keep him in there. And of course, we know that John King's family, the one who was so nasty, his father, they must have had some money, because his father pleaded for his life. I'm not sure if any of this makes me feel any better. It just makes me sad and upset to know that in 2024, we're still dealing with this madness. 2024. I'm not even going to name them, but Breonna Taylor, killed in her own home. Black girl. Police officers killed her. White police officers. I can't even begin to name all the names. I think at some point maybe I'll do a video and I will name them, lest we forget. But this is terrible, that we are still dealing with this atrocity all these years. When I went to the museum today, the Rice Museum really brought this thing down hard on me and the ladies who were with me. And I was the only black one in the bunch, but we all cried like babies. It is terrible. It is a crime against humanity. I don't care what color you are. All of the things that happen to black people here on this soil, and still we rise. Listen, if anything I've said, you want to share it, please do. Hit the notification bell. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. And now, you know what you didn't know. Take care.